All right, Yangtze Patrol. The Yangtze Patrol is something that has been around for a long time under various guises, under various names. And it started out, the first US naval ship going up the Yangtze was in 1854. And the Yangtze Patrol had been going through all sorts of stuff. The last iteration before it actually became the Yangtze Patrol was the third division of the Asiatic Fleet. And that was up until 1921 when on, let's see, it was on August 5th, 1921, Yangpat actually was formed, and it was organized under Rear Admiral W.H.G. Ballard. And it kept going under Yangpat until December 5th of 1941 when it was disbanded. They traveled the entire length up to Chungking of the Yangtze River. Sometimes it went beyond Chungking. Chungking was pretty much the end point, but it went beyond that a couple of times. And then there's a big lake south of the Yangtze River that ends up going all the way to Changsha. And the Yangtze Patrol also patrolled that lake and went down to Changsha. It was a mix of different ships. They had everything from minesweepers to gunboats. And according to Kemp Tolley, who was a member of the fleet, he was on the, I think he was on the Tutuila. He, in a correspondence he had with me, he said that any ship going up above Shanghai was attached to the Yangtze Patrol. So there were cruisers in Nanking that were attached to the Yangtze Patrol while they were in Nanking or above Shanghai. So a whole range of ships. Going all the way back to captured Spanish ships from the Spanish-American War. And go ahead and next slide, please. You can see a map there that came out of Kemp Tolley's book, Yangtze Patrol. And it shows Shanghai almost in the middle right of the map. And you can see the Yangtze River going all the way up to Chungking. And then you can see that lake down there that is attached to the river. And you can see Changsha to the south of it. And we had ships going all the way down to there. And we had ships hitting all the cities up there, all the towns. And there's some extremely rare ports that you can be looking for that don't normally get found, but they're out there. Okay, next. Okay, again, this is, it started in 1854, and they were sailing ships, of course, back then, and they were sailing up and down the river, protecting American interests, mainly at that time, missionaries. And from what I've been able to talk to Yangtze patrollers, most of them did not like the missionaries simply because the missionaries would stay till the bitter end and the warlords were fighting and they were being besieged. And when the gunboats got a message to go help the missionaries, they knew they were in trouble because missionaries wouldn't do anything until they knew they were in really bad trouble, and they called the Navy in. So the Navy had to go fight the warlords off to rescue the missionaries. Go ahead. This is the MONOCACY, the first one. There were two MONOCACYs. This is a side wheeler. The other one was built in 1914. You'll see a picture of that later on. It was built in 1914. in United States at Mare Island in California, along with the Palos. And then they were dismantled, shipped to Shanghai, reconstructed, and then put on the river. And other than the ships like the Villalobos, the General Alava, the ELCANO, the Quiros, the Callao, the Samar, other Spanish-American War prizes, the Palos and the MONOCACY were the first dedicated American-built ships to go up and down the river on a permanent basis. Okay, go ahead. This is a cover of the first MONOCACY. You can find these quite often on eBay or in auctions. Most of them are addressed to people in Japan, but this is from the first MONOCACY. I even have a Christmas card from the first MONOCACY while it was in China. And it was, here's the back end of it, the reverse, okay. 20th century, the Spanish-American War produced a lot of ships we did not know what to do with, so we put them in China. We split them up between Canton, where there was a lot of stuff going on up that time, Shanghai, and then down to Hong Kong. So we were up and down the entire coast at this time. We had the Peking relief in the Boxer Rebellion in the early part of the century. We had ships there. We had, there was lots of stuff going on throughout China. At this time, it was the Qing dynasty, and Sun Yat-sen, whom a lot of you probably have heard about. Sun Yat-sen was sort of the Abraham Lincoln of China. In fact, you can see the 1940 stamp that has China's Sun Yat-sen and Abraham Lincoln on it. And the Qing dynasty fell apart in 1911 when Sun Yat-sen was successful. He wasn't the best administrator. He went into exile in Japan shortly thereafter, and things fell apart. And this is when the US Navy started really pushing hard there. Not only in the Yangtze Patrol, but down in Shanghai or in Hong Kong and up in Tianjin. This is from Shanghai. Not every ship that hit Shanghai, even though that's the mouth of the Yangtze River, it was attached to the Yangtze Patrol. We had carriers and everything else end up in Shanghai simply because it was the major city on the coast besides Hong Kong and Macau. So you see a lot of covers from Shanghai from US Navy ships that had nothing to do with the Yangtze Patrol. Okay, next. This is the Vicksburg, the cover that you just saw. Again, it's one of the last sailing ships there was in the US Navy. Next. This is the oldest cover I have from the Yangtze Patrol. The Wilmington was the Yangtze Patrol flagship for a while. This is from, you can see December 24th, 1901 from Nanking. It's got Chinese postage on it. It's early covers like this, I'm sure Henry Sweets could agree with this. Early covers like this is they're very hard to find. I was very fortunate to find this cover. Moving on. Okay, this is the USS Quiros before it got its canceling device. You can see it's from Nanking. The text says, "Dear Auntie and all," was transferred to the USS Quiros. Quiros is a fairly hard ship to find. There's a few covers out there, but they command some high prices. Okay, moving on. This is from the USS Aberenda. There, like I said, there's many, many, many ships that sailed up the Yangtze River. USS Aberenda is one of them. Not too many covers from the Aberenda, but this is from Nanking. A lot of these are real photo postcards, sailors taking photographs, turning them into postcards and sending them back home. And you can see this guy was really impressed with this Chinese sword swallower. This is right after World War I started. The English boats at this time that were on the and the German ships were already either quarantined. The German ships, there were a squadron of 4 or 5 of them that ended up going up to Canton, and I'll talk about that later on. But the English ships, they were quarantined, and most of their sailors went back to Great Britain to fight the Germans back there. This is the USS ELCANO. Sometimes these ships went back and forth between the Yangtze Patrol and the South China Patrol. This is postmarked Canton. That was part of the South China Patrol. ELCANO didn't stay in Canton very long. It usually was on the Yangtze River Patrol. So this is a hard cover to find since it was not on the Yangtze Patrol. It was down in South China. And you can see by the date, it was only about a month and a half before World War I started. Okay, go ahead. Okay. Censored covers from the Yangtze Patrol are extremely hard to find. This is a cover from C.K. Brown, who was on board the USS Villalobos at Huangpu. It's got the correct censor markings and censor tape according to the World War I AEF book. The cancel is really stuttered and blurred. We can't make it out. I know that there's at least 2 other covers because that cover is Greg's. I've got 2 censored covers myself, and they're all from the same person, addressed to the same person, and pretty much from the same time period. So again, censored covers from Yangtze Patrol is extremely hard to find. Okay. This is the USS MONOCACY, the second one. Well, she was then in Nanking. It's a real photo postcard. This is the ship that Greg's father was an officer on, and I think he might have been an officer at this time when this cancel was on, and it really got Greg going on Yangtze Patrol and the Asiatic Fleet. Again, it was built in Mare Island along with the Palos. It was reassembled in Pyongyang, which is a big shipbuilding area in Shanghai. In fact, the 6 later gunboats we'll get to later, all of those were purposefully built in Pyongyang in 1926 and commissioned in launched in 1927, commissioned in 1928. They were all coal burning, and the draft on this ship was about 2.5 feet. And that really shallow draft allowed it to get all the way to Chongqing. Okay, next. Okay, here's another one from the MONOCACY. J.N. Lawrence, if you collect anything from the Asiatic area, you're going to see J.N. Lawrence's autograph everywhere. He was a postal clerk. He loved servicing covers, and this one was addressed to Herb Rommel. A lot of you who have had some history with the USCS know the name Herb Rommel. He died a couple of years ago, but he was an extremely important person to the USCS. And this is a Nanking. The most common ports on the Yangtze Patrol is Shanghai, Nanking, Huangpu, Chongqing, Yichang, There's one or two others that are pretty common. Okay. The 1920s events, this is when everything started falling apart. From 1916 to 1928, that's called the warlord period. And you can move past that, Steve, but it's the warlord period, especially on the Yangtze. The warlords were all over the place. In fact, so much so that this medal was put out for ships that helped out with things going on at this time. From 1926, March or September 3rd, 1926 to October 21st, 1927, there was something called the Nanking incident. It was all warlords going on and fighting, and we were losing people due to injury and being wounded, and a couple of deaths from the Yangtze Patrol because the warlords were all over the place. They were fighting the communists, they were fighting the nationalists, they were fighting each other, and we were right in the middle of it. The Yangtze Service Medal you see there for the Nanking incident was given to 38 ships, all the service members on 38 ships. This is a reproduction here. You can tell a reproduction because on the original Yangtze Service Medal, around the rim of the medal, there's a number, and that number is assigned to every person that received that medal. In fact, there's a book out there that you can find that lists all these serial numbers and assigns it to the sailor that it was given to. So if you find a Yangtze Service Medal and it has a serial number, that's one of the original ones. And you can look it up and see what who it was given to, as well as what ship he was on. The Yangtze Service Medal was also given to sailors on board 52 ships that helped with Yangtze flooding from March 1st, 1930 to December 31st, 1932, which took tens of thousands of lives. The Yangtze flooded like crazy. And the US Navy went up there for humanitarian aid. And there were 52 ships that did that. And they also got the Yangtze Medal. This covers from the ELCANO when it was on the Yangtze Patrol. In fact, you can see the corner card, it says Yangtze Patrol Force. It has the correct 15-cent registry postage, but it is canceled with its registered Type 9 cancel. There's three other registered covers on the, or three other registered cancels on the back of this thing. The Type 9 at this period has a rarity according to the catalog is R3. So it's a fairly rare cover out there. Okay. Okay, this is a Kiros cover. And Henry, you might correct me on this, but this is the only USS Kiros cover that I'm aware of that has a USS Kiros corner card. And it was canceled in Huangpu, and you can see it has dual postage, American and Chinese. So that's an interesting cover. I was happy to pick that one up. Okay. This is an Isabel cover. She was Yangtze Patrol flagship at this time. This is late 1920s. It overpaid the registry postage by 1 cent, but you can see her killer bars. It says Yangtze Patrol there. And so this, she wasn't always the Yangtze Patrol flagship. It shifted around a bit, but at this time it was, and she was also there taking part in the Nanking incident and the Yangtze Patrol humanitarian aid for the flood a couple of years later. The Isabel, you might know, was a yacht turned into a patrol ship and had a pretty interesting time in the Chinese waters. Okay. In the late 20s, before the 6 new ships were taken and built there in Shanghai, there was so much violence on the river going on that we needed to send more ships there. And so they ended up sending 2 minesweepers to act as gunboats up and down the river. One was the USS Penguin, and this is a pretty rare cover because you don't see Penguin with a corner card Yangtze Patrol Force very often. And the other one was USS Pigeon, both of them minesweepers converted into gunboats for the time period that they were on the Yangtze. Okay, this one has a corner card from the US Navy Go Down. The Go Down is originally Malayed and turned into a Chinese pigeon for warehouse. And this US Navy Go Down was only for the Yangtze Patrol. It's where they kept all their stores, their ammunition, their food, their medical supplies and stuff like that. You can find Go Down covers that were philatelically inspired, that they actually used that hand stamp on the stamp as a cancellation device. Okay. All right. This is the other bird boat, the Pigeon, the other minesweeper. And its corner card is US Navy Go Down Huangpu. So that attaches a ship to the place where it was getting its supplies. So that's an interesting cover in itself. The 6 new gunboats built in the 1920s, like again, they were built in the 26. They were launched in 27, commissioned in 28. They were the GUAM, the Tutuila, the Panay, the Oahu, Luzon, and Mindanao. Mindanao only served on the Yangtze Patrol for maybe 9 or 10 months, maybe 12. And then it was transferred to the South China Patrol, where it became the flagship there. The Luzon was the flagship for a while for the Yangtze Patrol. Okay. Couple of photographs for the GUAM in dry dock there. You can see that sometimes these ships had a hard time on the river. They would run into different rocks. The river wasn't charted very well at times, and they could end up being stranded. I've got a photograph of one of the gunboats, one of the latter 6, high and dry up on the shore after it hit a rock. So there was a lot of times they were in dry dock. Okay, this is a nice cover. Everybody likes Crosby's, and this is a Panay cover. About what, 6 months before she was sunk, with a Crosby Panay. You can find Crosby covers for most of the later gunboats on the Yangtze. In fact, they're not that hard to find, and they're really interesting when you can't find them. Okay, sometimes you run out of stamps, and this is only happening with Tutuila that I've been able to find. And they assigned an officer to figure this out, and Kemp Tolley designed this hand stamp to tell people that when you get this, you're going to have to pay for it because we don't have any stamps on board ship. There are 2 different hand stamps like this. Kemp Tolley is one. There's another one by the name of Germany. That's rarer than the Tolley one. So there's two different hand stamps like that you can look for, Kemp Tolley and a guy named Germany is his last name. Okay. Okay. This is a pre post office cover from the USS Luzon. This was before it got its canceling device and before the post office opened on board ship. And you can see that the U.S. Navy purchasing office in Shanghai substituted for the ship's post office until they got their own canceling device. And you can find pre-postal covers from some of the ships, but almost all of them will have U.S. Navy purchasing office from Shanghai. Again, this is one of the rarer areas you can find cancellations from. This is from Chicken Rocks, China. There's about 20, 25 really hard to find places in the killer bars. Like I said, Shanghai, Nanking, Hankow, you can find those all the time. But like Chicken Rocks or Mud Fort Barrier or other things like that, or Ox Liver Gorge, there's some really colorful names that you can find inside the killer bars. Now this is an interesting cancel because you can see the Chinese characters underneath. And those Chinese characters are actually a transliteration from English to China of Tutuila. Okay. Okay, this is a cover from the USS Mindanao. Like I said, she was only on the Yangtze Patrol for a very short time at the very beginning of her career in China. But you can see this is a number 10, and the corner card is USS Mindanao, Yangtze Patrol. So you can find covers from her while she was on the Yangtze. Again, this is an early cover. You can, she might not have had her post office by this time or hadn't gotten used to using it because it's, again, the U.S. Navy purchasing office in Shanghai was used as a post office. Okay. All right. There's other things in the Yangtze Patrol that you can find besides just covers. Greg has a lot of stuff from his dad here. Lieutenant Finnegan was a friend of a lot of people in the American Consular Service. So there was lots of information going back and forth, and invitations and all sorts of stuff like that. So next. This is explaining what the Tiffin is. And again, they were really, the informality in China was something else. China Station before 1937 was the cream of the crop. That was the best you could have because you didn't have to do a lot except sail up and down the river. You wanted to do your laundry, all you had to stop, and you had a lot of people coming on board wanting to do your laundry for you. You had all sorts of stuff. There was a lot of camaraderie between the forces. I have a postcard showing from a U.S. sailor showing Italian and Japanese sailors from their various ships attending racetrack horse races in Hankow. So there was a lot of camaraderie around. There was basketball games, soccer games, baseball games between all the various navies, and they had a great time. You read some of the letters, they just said, this is great having it in China. Moving on. Okay, here's a request for Lieutenant Finnegan to attend something with Yangtze Rapid Steamship Company, which is an American line. There was the Robert Dollar line that sent ships up and down the Yangtze all the way to Chongqing. There was SOCONY, which was Standard Oil Company of New York, sending all sorts of tankers and other ships up and down the Yangtze. That was one of the main reasons the Yangtze Patrol was there, to protect American interests there. Next. There's a picture of the Guam, and you can see behind it Standard Oil Company of New York. This is SOCONY, which is one of their grandchildren now is Mobil Oil. And they were protecting a lot of the ships going up and down. In fact, when the USS Panay was sunk on December 12, 1937, she was protecting 3 SOCONY tankers going upriver. Okay. You can read this as well as I can. This is something from Greg's dad when he was attached to the USS Guam. So he went back and forth different ships as well. Okay. Again, one of the covers that came from Greg's collection from his dad. Greg was really impressed with this because it's one of the better canceled struck covers that he's ever seen. Okay. There's lots of Christmas cards that came from these ships. This is from the MONOCACY from James Clark, sent by James Clark. I personally have 7 different Christmas cards from Yangtze River patrol boats. They're really interesting. Some of them will have a list of the crew. Some of them will have a map of where they have been going. Others are just plain, but a lot of them will have photographs in them like this. Something to keep your eyes open for if you collect this stuff. Okay. This is the front of the card. Sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll find the card along with its photo, with its canceled envelope that it came in. Okay. Very well struck. A lot of times the naval mail clerks didn't really strike them very well, but you can find cancels in purple and in black and in blue are the 3 colors I've been able to find. Okay. Again, this is just, you can find instances of, or you can find examples rather of letterheads from the various ships, which is always interesting to add to your collection. Okay. And sometimes you'll have photos in them as well. This is from Greg Finnegan's father and shows something happening around Kuling. And like I said, in China, you didn't even have to get a taxi. You just got one of these things and they carried you around everywhere. I've got several photographs like that. Okay. Sometimes you can find registered covers that aren't real covers, but like these receipts, hard to find, but they're out there. This is from Greg's collection. Okay. Here's a picture of MONOCACY's crew. You can find these out there as well. And they're always nice if you can have a crew to try and figure out who the real mail is coming from. Okay. Other things, the 4th Marines were stationed in Shanghai, and they had a lot of interaction with the Yangtze Patrol. There was Marine Guard in Peking. There was the 15th Regiment in Tianjin. So you could even find covers like when the Marine Guard came in, or Marine Regiment came in from Shanghai, they came in on the USS Henderson. And you can find covers from the Henderson debarking the Marine Regiment. So all sorts of stuff to look for. Okay. Other nations had Yangtze gunboats. The most prevalent ships on the Yangtze, other than the United States, was Great Britain. UK had a lot of ships there. They're really hard to find because a lot of times it just says on His Majesty's service, and you have to have a handwritten return address or something to determine where the ships came from. Or you get lucky and you find something like this that actually has a letterhead on it. Okay, this is HMS Athos. This is from the HMS Gannett while it was in China. Again, this is ephemera, but it fits really well with the Yangtze Patrol collection because this is from a naval ship on the Yangtze. Okay. This is one of the naval ships from Great Britain. It's from the HMS Teal from Huangpu, and it's from 1905. Like I said, there are a lot of English ships on there, and they stayed on the Yangtze until 1949, when there was a big Yangtze incident between Great Britain and the Communist Chinese. So again, this is really hard to find. Here's a photograph of the HMS Kinshaw. These are the soccer members from the HMS Kinshaw. They had just won the Yangtze flotilla, which was what the British called their ships on the Yangtze. They just won their soccer championship in 1913. Okay. France also had a good number of ships on the river. This is from the Balney, the cannoneer Balney, or the gunboat Balney. And you can see in the upper left corner of the left cover, it's Flotilla du Yangtze. And if you look at the lower right invitation from the captain, that logo there, if you really look closely, it's really cool. It's that dragon intertwined between a Y and a T and a K, Yangtze Kiang, which is the Yangtze River. And so that was their little logo for their Flotilla du Yangtze. Okay. One of the other French ships was the Francis Garnier that was later sunk in Vietnam during that time in late 40s, early 50s. I don't know when it was officially sunk, but Francis Garnier, and showing again the informality and the collegiality between the people. This is an invitation to Greg's father to go to the Francis Garnier. Okay. The Germans had quite a few ships on the Yangtze. This is from the SMS Jaguar. A lot of their ships in 1914 took off to Tientsin, which was a big German base on the Kiachao Peninsula, where they were met with a combined Japanese-English force that destroyed them. In fact, in 1914, when the Japanese and the British were destroying the Germans, this was the very first time ever that a bomb was dropped from an airplane onto a ship, and it was a Japanese airplane that dropped the bomb. And all the German gunboats were sunk up in Tientsin. Now, the way you can tell what ship it is from, you can see the cancel, and it has a number. This is number 45. There's a book out there that was published in Germany that lists every single German boat by its MSP number. The number 45 is the MSP number, and it lists where it was every single day it was out on patrol. So this is a really good reference to try and find out if you ever come across any MSP numbers before 1914, this is the book to go to. Okay. Austria had at least 3 ships on the river. The Franz Joseph, the Panther, and I'm blanking out on the other one, but they're extremely hard to find. I've got one from the Franz Joseph here from Huangpu, and I also have another one from the Panther, or actually it was to the Panther from Austria. So if you ever find any Austro-Hungarian ships from the Yangtze, you've gotten a treasure there. Okay. Japan had a bunch of ships on the river. This is from a destroyer, the URAKAZE, Chongqing, and starting around 1938, 37, 38, Japan actually had a gunboat division based in Huangpu, and it had 12 ships on that division, and those ships went everywhere from Shanghai to Chongqing, and the Yokohama was the flagship of the Huangpu division. There were other areas in Shanghai that had gunboats and stuff, but they weren't attached to this 11th Gunboat Division in Huangpu. Okay. Italy had 3 gunboats permanently stationed on board or on the Yangtze River. This is from the Sebastiano Cabato. There was the, now I'm blanking out on the other 2. I should have had them out. I've got covers from all 3. They surrendered when Italy surrendered in 1943. However, Italy also had several submarines based in Shanghai. In 1943, they decided to go over to the Japanese. And here's a little known fact. The very last American plane shot down in the war was shot down by an Italian submarine. And it was a B-24. So moving on, I think that might be it.
That is our last slide.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?